Love again. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Couch Boxing, along with very little decor in the background anymore, as the old studio gets a little bit of a paint job and facelift, but still here, and the Alexis Arguello puppet still here.
And I'm your other host, Frank Benji's, back with another one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And as always, another good guest, a legend in the world of boxing in his own right, and a guy that I'm super excited to get the chance to talk to, because, man, has he had a big year, man. A big year. I thought I had a big year. I had nothing. I had nothing on this guy. And what can I say, man? I'm excited to talk to him.
Me too. Most definitely.
And so at the time of this,
I thought I heard the little ding.
yeah, no, he's saying he's not able to open this link. So problems abound.
Oh man.
Hold on. Not sure why, but oh, wait a minute. We have him here. Yes. Bring him in. Yep. See, folks, we thought we were going to have to fucking cut and run on you. But we don't have to cut and run on you. Because instead we got him here, man. He gets the microphone and the camera on, and we got him. And see that? We thought that there were going to be technical difficulties, and we worried for nothing, didn't we?
Should get a pop-up to turn your mic and camera on.
Yeah, if he can hear us. There he is. Can you hear us?
I hear you loud and clear.
All right, Harvey Dock, it's so great to have you on here, man, and such an honor, man, and so many questions to throw at you. But first of all, I got to congratulate you, man, because you have had a monster of a year, man. I mean, you have gotten to referee some of the biggest fights of this past year, and I've always wondered, when you get big fights like that, is it just based on experience? Are a lot of guys, being an outsider looking in, are a lot of guys vying to be on that big stage, and how do you get selected?
Well, the selection process is totally up to each state commission. So, I've been licensed in several states. So whatever state that you're working in, that state commission, that athletic commission will decide who's going to officiate. So that's everything from the referees to the judges, the inspectors, the ringside physicians, and so on. So, I have absolutely nothing to do with it. I'm just selected.
Wow. And and to be catapulted into all those huge fights. We were just talking beforehand. I mean, just did the Charlo Benavidez Jr., Shakur De Los Santos. I hope you drank an extra pot of coffee for the Shakur fight. I'm just saying. I'm just saying, man. And I know you have to be very bipartisan, but I'm saying, man, that was like the new cure for Ambien right there, man. I stayed up on a school night to watch that fight, Harvey. That was a Thursday night.
Right. Hey, well, every fight's not going to be a Hagler Hearns.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, you got to take the good with the bad. But you started out boxing though. I mean, first you were competing. How did you segue from competing into refereeing? What brought the actual in-ring career, fighting wise, to a halt?
Well, you know how they say some of the best coaches are coaches that were average players.
Yes.
So put me in that mix. I was an average amateur boxer. I won a couple of tournaments, but I never won a national tournament. I won some state tournaments, and I knew where my ceiling was. So
right.
But I always had a big passion for the sport, as I do now. So I wanted to still be involved with the sport. So I started officiating and found that I loved it. So here I am, some 20 plus years later.
Yeah.
I started in the amateurs, I believe, in '98, and I got my professional license in 2003. Did my first professional bout in 2004, and fast forward 20 years later, and here I am talking to you.
Yeah, crazy.
So I'm curious, man, like coming up, you're obviously a big boxing fan. To become a boxer and then become a referee. Like, who was your guy growing up, man? Who did you like look up to, boxing growing up?
Well, my favorite fighter, I'm 52 years old, so Sugar Ray Leonard is my guy.
Yeah, I'm 51 myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, Sugar Ray Leonard, that's my guy. But all the great fighters from that era, I've watched probably thousands of times. That Tommy Hearns, Marvin Hagler, Larry Holmes, Salvador Sanchez. That 80s era was my golden era. I haven't stopped watching any of the fights since, but for me, that's my golden era. And from Ray Leonard and those great fighters transitioning into Roy Jones, he was great throughout the 90s. Floyd Mayweather. So but to answer your question, Ray Leonard is he's on top of my Mount Rushmore. That's
very interesting that you bring him up, though, because, and we usually ask this more towards the end of the show. It's usually one of our show closers. But since you brought it up, though, and you being, so often having been the third man in the ring, who did you think won Hagler and Leonard? You being a big Leonard guy, I'm sure you've watched that fight, a classic, still to this day, a polarizing decision. This decision divides nations. I can't believe how polarizing it still is, Harvey. It's crazy.
Well, I started by saying I'm a Ray Leonard guy. So if me watching that fight favors Ray Leonard over Hagler, then that's just the way I'm wired. But but being objective about it as best I can, I thought Hagler gave away the first 3 or 4 rounds.
Absolutely, me too.
So if you give away the first 3-4 rounds, it's only it wasn't a 15-round fight. It's a 12-round fight.
Yeah.
So for Hagler to get a decision, or even let's say a draw, he's got to win after 4 rounds. He's got to capture 6 of the next 8, and I just don't know if he did that.
Right. Good point. Yeah.
I think most of what he gave away too was him switching to the orthodox stance.
Yeah.
And trying to do whatever he was doing there didn't really suit him well.
Well, I think Race did a little number on him before the fight by telling him he can outbox him or something along those lines. And I think Hagler wanted to prove that he was just as good of a boxer as Ray was. So
I'm interested to get your take, Harvey, because this is such a topical thing, though. Obviously a big part of your job is getting in that ring and being neutral, being unbiased, not showing favoritism towards one fighter or over another. But has that become increasingly difficult now in the social media age where we're so saturated with hearing these guys? Everybody's walking around with a camera and a microphone. These guys, it's hard to either not like or like guys out in this world. How do you find that ability to stay, to stay kind of bipartisan?
Well, I mean, being an official, that's your job. You have to stay bipartisan. If you're going to be a respected official in this game, you can't have any favoritisms one way or the other, regardless of what age you live in. An official is an official, whether it's in 2023 or going into the future or in the past. You have to remain neutral and bipartisan with what you do. So you don't let those the internet and social media affect the way you officiate. You have to have the same mentality, and that's neutrality.
Well,
I got a second part to that question.
I got a question that kind of goes with that question.
Okay.
Like when you're in the ring, obviously you fought, you watch fights, you're part of fights, 50 fights this year at least that I know of. You sense that fighting and when a guy won a fight or didn't win a fight. And then do you feel weird when you got to raise the hand of a guy that you might not in the back of your mind? Like, not to put you out there or say that, but I'm just curious, like, because back in the day, the referee was the one that scored the fight. You know what I mean? So
Right, you're getting
like,
a great bird's eye view of the fight.
Like, I'm just kind of curious, like, is that something that's kind of weird? Like, you feel like this guy didn't win, but I gotta honor it. And I have no names.
Actually, no. So yeah, I mean, back in the 70s and before that, yeah, there was the referee, and that was it. There were no judges.
Right.
At some point in the 70s, that changed from one referee and two judges. But no, I do not envy the referees who had to referee and judge bouts.
Oh,
So
brutal.
yeah. I mean, because fights are, they can be looked at in different ways. So for me, I'd rather not pay attention to who's winning the round. I have enough to focus on when I'm just officiating the bouts. So no, I don't pay attention to who may or may not be winning. I don't do that. I don't look at it from that perspective until I watch a replay of the fight. Maybe, whenever I get a chance to watch the fight again. But while I'm in there, no, I don't look at it from the perspective of who's winning and losing. I'm just, looking at it from a referee's rules perspective. Who may be bending or breaking the rules. So
now,
yeah,
what about how do you sort out the obviously it can be difficult when a guy enters the ring and carries with him some type of notoriety or some type of reputation for being a dirty fighter or using elbows or trying to headbutt on the inside. Does that add an extra layer when you've got like a particular thing that a guy does? You're trying to watch this fight and keep it square, but then some guys will try some dirty tactics.
Well, I don't base it. Well, I'm looking out for everything. Any type of rules violations I'm going to look out for, but I do not base it on what they did in the past. I think every fighter deserves a clean slate when they come into the ring. So they may have broken every rule in the book in their last fight, and then they may come into this fight and be completely clean. Or vice versa. They could have been completely clean their whole career, but now they come into the ring with bad blood with the other boxer, and now you have World War III on your hands, with rules violations. So but I try to treat I do treat every bout as its own individual fight without taking anything into consideration based on what happened in their past.
Are there guys who were judges previous to you that you looked at or were mentored by? I mean, obviously, even just in my days of watching boxing, I always loved Mills Lane. He was a great character of the. I mean, in recent years, Joe Cortez, Tony Weeks, Arthur Mercante. I mean, there's been a lot of great judges. Was there anybody that kind of, took you under their wing or mentored you in any way?
Oh, without question. So I've had the pleasure of coming up in New Jersey. I'm from New Jersey. Newark, New Jersey, and I was groomed under two referees and one commissioner, all three top notch. The two refs were Benji Estevez, who's been like a godfather to all the referees in New Jersey, as well as David Fields, who's worked dozens of championship fights, but who was the godfather to all of us is the still now active commissioner, Larry Hazzard, who was a referee in the 70s going into the 80s. And he set the ground rules on how refereeing should be done. We go to clinics and seminars every year, and he always oversees these seminars. So we've gotten some of the best training. If you came out of New Jersey, we've had the benefit of having Larry Hazzard mentor all of us. But right under Larry Hazzard, like I said, for me specifically, Benji Estevez and David Fields were the two guys who worked with me the most intimately. Yeah.
That's high praise. That's high praise. I mean, you know,
Yeah,
especially considering where you are right now in your career, though. You know what I mean? Like that shows, you know, that puts a lot of shine on them as just to how good of mentors they were. You know?
oh, those two guys are incredible. I mean, like you can if you're gonna listen to anybody, if you listen to those two, you can't go wrong because
Right.
they're two of the best that have ever done it. And if you ever had any problem outside of those two, which you shouldn't, Larry Hazard knows everything you can actually encounter in the ring. So sometimes you have a rough bout, you give the commissioner a call, and he tells you what you should or shouldn't do, and he doesn't bite his tongue. So
Yeah.
if you know him, he's a guy who doesn't bite his tongue for anyone.
I imagine you have to be pretty thick-skinned though, because obviously, and you mentioned, you know, the judges or the referees back in the day, that not being a very enviable position to have to judge and referee the fight. You know, obviously, you've probably gotten lots of criticism. You know, obviously, we scrutinize referees for early stoppages we don't like when we're watching fights or whatever. Have you experienced a lot of that? And how do you deal with it? Does it weigh on you, or do you just kind of approach it as on to the next one?
Yeah, it's on to the next. You can't get bogged down in the social media age because everybody these days has a voice, right? So social media, whether it's, I don't know, Facebook, Twitter, all these. Luckily, I'm old enough where I'm not on social media that much, so
Yeah.
I don't get too much of the criticism. But yeah, I mean, it's you do have to have a certain amount of thick skin and just know that it comes with the territory.
Yeah.
Right.
This
You're under
this is
bright lights, so yeah, a lot of people will
Very
have
bright
opinions.
lights.
Yeah, so
something I'm
people will
really
have
curious.
opinions. It comes with the territory.
Something I'm super curious about, and I know you refereed this fight, Marquise Taylor and Elvis Gomez, and not to speak on that fight specifically, but just to like highlight, Marquise Taylor was using a lot of like, you know, tactics to get inside and stuff. And I'm just curious, like, you know how they say like let them play in sports, like
Right.
what, like there's dirty boxing, but like what to you is like too much? You know what I mean? Like what's overdoing it?
Constitutes you getting involved.
What are you looking for if you're going to step in and say that's too much? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a fine line. It's a gray line there, and if both boxers are still fighting without let's say I just saw you I'm not having great recall on that specific bout. However, I saw you using your elbows. So if elbows are coming into play with the opponent, then you're going to have to address it. But sometimes they have just a high guard and they're barreling their way inside. And if there's no contact, you have to let those guys just, you know, sometimes just fight it out. You know, there's no one general answer that can cover each fight. You know, each fight is unique in its own element. So, you know, you have to be there. You have to be in the moment. And it's not fight by fight. Sometimes it's second by second, round by round. You know, sometimes a guy is borderline dirty 1 minute and then he's dirty the next. So that next minute is that minute that you're going to have to address it, you know.
And it's just the only reason I ask is just nice to hear it from you because, you know, there's a lot of speculation in the boxing community about, you know, dirty fighting and if like leading with the elbows is dirty, which obviously you're saying it is, but it happens though when guys are just high guard moving in, you know, so you can't always account for, like you're saying, everything's different. You can't always account and say it's dirty.
I mean, you have to know how to navigate in the gray area. I mean, yeah, there's rules that are black and white, but I think to be a successful official, you have to know how to navigate in the gray area. And you have to know what you can allow and what you won't allow. You know, so yes, it's a tricky area once you get into that gray area, but you just have to figure out how to maneuver through that area.
A lot of it probably helps. You know, obviously a lot of it is working on instinct. But do you think that you, having previously even had any amount of in-ring experience as a competitor, has helped in your transition to being a referee?
It's helped me. Yes,
Yeah.
I don't know if I would say it works for everybody, but it definitely works for me. I use everything in my toolbox to help me, make the best decisions possible. And I don't always get them right, but I think it's definitely helped me because you develop certain instincts that help. So those instincts help you look ahead as well as just looking in the moment, as opposed to just what's happening in front of you, but what someone's trying to do. So that's only been enhanced by my experiences as an amateur boxer. So yeah, it's definitely helped me.
Well, I gotta say, I do kind of like that boxing hasn't been sullied with the instant replay on everything. Like, I like that
Thank
we just
God.
put it in your hands and you decide. And even if I don't like it, that's the decision you made.
Yeah.
I'd rather have it like that.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is 2023, so I imagine going forward, you may start to see more and more
Not trying to
instant
give the
replays on
WBC any
certain
ideas.
decisions. Huh?
Not trying to give the WBC any ideas.
Yeah, yeah. Please don't start it to replay. But obviously, you said before that like you get these gigs, pretty much, you're selected by the athletic commission. But obviously, though, some of it has to be a reflection on the job that you do, though. Like when you end up on a big stage, like say, like the biggest fight that we've been wanting in boxing for years, and we finally got this year was Spence and Crawford. And and then there you are, the third man in the ring. I mean, do you look at those as like, wow, like this is really a milestone in my career, or are all the fights kind of the same, or do the bigger ones mean more?
When I'm in there, my approach to any fight is basically one is just like any other one. But
Right.
when I have time to reflect on it afterwards, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish so far. But going into it, you have to have the same. I have the same mindset as I do with any fight, and that's paying attention to detail, because you don't want to make any mistakes, whether it's a big fight or a small 4-round fight, So paying attention to detail is what I think gets me to that next bout and the next bout after that. Just paying attention to what's in front of me, not putting too much emphasis on one particular fight over any other one, So, but yeah, I mean, when I look back and reflect, I'm glad to have received some of the bouts that I've gotten in my career.
And are there things that you've been self-critical about before, like where you've looked at it and said, I got to make this part of my refereeing, I got to tighten this up or get better at it? Were there things that you struggled with?
All the time. I'm probably my harshest critic. Oh yeah, I go back and watch my fights and say, oh my goodness, I was too close in this instance. I was too far away in this instance. Oh man, that wasn't a low blow, and I called it a low blow, or vice versa. Oh yeah, see, and during the course of a bout, we're making, let's say in a 10-round fight, you might make 1,000 mini decisions during that bout. You're not going to get all of them right, believe me. So yeah, I think what's important to becoming better is to self-critique, self-evaluate. And if you're being objective, you're going to point out in those 1,000 decisions, you're going to find quite a few where you could have done things better. Right. So yeah, I'm definitely critical of my performances, even if I receive, a certain amount of, praise, if you will, there's things that I look at and say, wow, I should have did this better. Or I got in there a little bit too late, or I jumped in there too early. I'm definitely critical of my own performances.
Is that the thing you'd say referees are probably criticized the most for, though? That's probably the thing that probably garners the most backlash. Are the early stoppages? What are you in there?
Actually, to add to your question to what you're saying, if you're watching a fight and you're watching another referee work, and no referee in particular, any boxing match like in the world, doesn't matter, what would you be the most critical of if another referee was doing it? What would bother you?
I don't know if there's any one thing in particular, but I tell you what's a very dangerous foul in boxing that I think the sanctioning bodies and the state commissions have made a very concerted effort to address, and that's hitting behind the head.
Yeah,
those rabbit punches, they drive you crazy if you're sitting back watching it. So that foul in and of itself is very, very dangerous. So that's one that we tend to look at with our antennas up pretty high. So that's one that may bother me, just the rabbit punches. Other than that, I mean, I'm not gonna sit back and critique anyone because we all make mistakes. It comes with the territory. We're all human. But the rabbit punches in particular are something that definitely I think we've done a better job as a refereeing community to address that in recent years.
And now,
the only reason I added that and was curious is because a lot of times what you hear is like people will complain about, and this goes for all sports across the board, just referees stepping in too often, or you know what I mean? Like that's been a thing that people complain about a lot. So I was just curious what your thoughts were about that, but you didn't even bring it up. So
it depends on it depends on the fight. I mean, sometimes that is required that you get in there so things don't get out of hand. And then you're right. Sometimes you need to leave those guys alone and just let them fight their way out of it. But then there are times when if you don't get in there under the same circumstances, you might have hell on your hands. So you have to look at it on almost on a fight by fight basis.
Exactly what you were talking about maneuvering in the gray area.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and then obviously one of the biggest gray areas, that I was about to bring up, is the early stoppages. We always hear these guys, and I guess it's probably part of that warrior code. You always hear these guys, they want to quote unquote go out on their shield, obviously. But it's your job, obviously, in there, and to a certain degree, the corner has a certain amount of power to stop a fight too. But have there been stoppages that you don't have to, you don't have to mention any specific ones, but have there been stoppages that you've made, throughout your long career, like where you've thought maybe I pulled the trigger too early? And how do you navigate through that? I mean, knowing how hard the fighters actually take that a stoppage.
Yeah, I mean, I've done hundreds of bouts, so there's been, maybe a few I wish I could have taken back. Where maybe they were too early, maybe there were a couple that was, maybe a punch or two too late.
Right.
You're not gonna escape a career without always getting that timing correct.
Right.
There are gonna be times in a long career where you might have one that was too soon or too late, but you have to just learn from them. There's no exact science, and each fight is different. So we're in 2023 now, right? So you're talking about early stoppages. So let's say you had a Matthew Saad Muhammad. You're 51 years old.
Yeah,
remember Matthew Saad Muhammad.
Yep.
Matthew, for the younger audience, Matthew Saad Muhammad was a guy who took a lot of punishment early in some of his championship fights, and he would just, after a while, just wear the other guy down. But in the beginning, he took an enormous amount of punishment. In the 90s, you had certain fights with Arturo Gatti, where he took a certain amount of punishment.
One of my favorites.
He was able to come back. So I think the landscape of officiating is a little bit different. And I've asked a few fellow officials in today's era, would a Matthew Saad Muhammad or an Arturo Gatti, could they excel under today's climate? Because we have become a little bit more safety conscious in this era than we were, let's say, decades ago, a generation ago, 2 generations ago.
Yeah.
So it's a fine line that we have to walk, because some of us are of a certain age where we remember those warriors who were able to fight their way out of a difficult situation. And I don't know if the fighters today are allowed that same leeway like they were, let's say, in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Things have changed a little bit. And for us older officials, we have to, sometimes figure out what's the right moment in time during that fight. And there's a lot of things you have to take into consideration. But yeah, I mean, you're gonna not always get it right when it comes to stopping fights too soon or too late. You're not gonna get it right all the time.
Good move by boxing.
No,
Was
no,
it a good move by boxing to get rid of 15-round fights, though? And shorten them to 12? Was that a good move by boxing to stop 15-round fights? Too much?
Okay, so anything that deals with safety, I'm typically in favor of. However, I'm more nostalgic, and I love the 15-round era.
Me too. Me too. I gotta say, man. Yeah, 3 more rounds too. I mean,
well, I'm thinking of my favorite fight was Leonard and Hearns, the first one.
Yeah.
And after that 12th round, you hear Angelo Dundee yelling at Leonard, "It's time to separate the men from the boys."
Yeah.
So those last 3 rounds, that's where you really decided who was the real champion.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you were just talking about the early stoppages and the different landscape of today's boxing. And I'll get this one in there, but we just watched a big fight that became a stoppage, and it was Boo Boo, Andrade, and Benavidez. And I thought that Thomas Taylor, in the landscape of the new boxing, handled that situation perfectly, like going over to the side and saying, if I don't see anything else, I can't see this anymore, was perfect. Like, he gave
great referee
a chance to fight his way out of it.
Right.
But if you're not gonna, I have to stop it.
Yeah. Kudos to Mr. Taylor. Great job of reffing that fight, by the way. Yeah. Shout out to him.
Well, yeah, Thomas Taylor is one of the best refs in the world. And see, here's another thing. If referees don't learn from that, you're doing yourself a disservice. I think we can all learn from each other, right? Yeah. So when there's things that happen, whether it's positive or negative, we should all be taking notes, right? And we can learn from someone's mistakes, and we can learn from someone's positive deeds that they've done. So yeah, Thomas Taylor is certainly one that I look at and take notes from. He's a great ref.
Yeah, I just thought in the way we're going with boxing, and you're talking about how it's changed with the, how we're trying to be safer with the fighters. I just thought that was such a thoughtful way of handling that situation. Like, he knew he was out on his feet, but he didn't want to just take it from him.
Right. So don't tell him, but I might be stealing a few pages from how he handled that situation.
Well,
yeah, that was just a good move, just a tactic.
Yeah, very good move. And now, what do you think about, like, when you see these? I just brought up Fury and Ngannou. Like when you see these hybrid matches, or even taking it a step further, when you see these Jake Paul type matches, these YouTubers getting into boxing. Ultimately, with you being so close to the sport, do you like what it does for the sport, or do you think it detracts from the sport?
I don't think it detracts at all. I think like a Jake Paul and Francis Ngannou, I think they have their own fan base. They came into boxing with their own fan base for the most part. So I don't think it takes away at all. And in fact, sometimes it actually helps, because let's say Jake Paul fights at Madison Square Garden, and he has Amanda Serrano on his undercard, right? Now you have more eyes watching whoever's on his undercard than what would typically watch if it was just him. So right. I think sometimes the collaboration can do good for maybe not the YouTube guy. Let's say an Ngannou, or he's not a YouTube. I'm sorry, a Jake Paul. But let's say the real fighters who are on his undercard, they have an opportunity now to really perform and have a spotlight on themselves that they typically wouldn't have, because you have this YouTube sensation who's headlining. Now all of his fans get a chance to watch that undercard fighter who typically doesn't have that same fan base.
Right, that's a platform. Yeah.
So I think guys can certainly use it to their advantage. I don't see any I don't think it detracts from real boxing at all. I think you can learn from it.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
from a real boxing standpoint, though, if they asked you to referee, you would go in there and treat it as if it was a real boxing match and referee it the same style.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Jake Paul. I mean, I look at him. I look at Ngannou. I mean, they're not at the top of the ladder in terms of professional boxing, but they have put the time in. So you have to look
they're
at
not
it
at the
like,
bottom.
yeah, they have to, but you have to look at their bouts like you look at any other bout, and just make sure they're following the rules and regulations that are in place. So yeah, I referee. I would referee their bout like I'd referee any other bout.
And obviously, we got big news that obviously Showtime is pulling out of boxing. Ultimately, have you rolled around in your own mind, like or have any theories on where boxing will land? It always does seem to find a home. I mean, we had HBO, we had Showtime. I mean, do you think everything will go strictly to pay-per-view? Will they have a platform? Will they find a channel?
Yeah, I haven't given it a lot of thought. I haven't delved into it. I haven't followed the movements of what's going on with the fighters that won the contract with Showtime. I really have no idea. I'm hearing different things, but I'm sure you've heard the same things that I've heard.
Yeah.
Whether it might be in, I don't know. I've heard Amazon Prime, I believe, might be in the running. But yeah, I'm sure boxing will survive, though. I mean, you have cable channels. You still have ESPN. I think boxing will land on its feet.
And I mean,
we were talking about
2023. We had a great year.
We were talking about this before, and I personally would pay $9.99 to watch any fight. Like if you just gave me Friday night fights and it was every Friday for $9.99, like you obviously wouldn't put Crawford and Spence at $9.99. That would be a big pay-per-view, but like just the regular, fights, $9.99.
Yeah,
get a whole card.
Great.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's still a ton of boxing fans out here, and yeah, I mean, when HBO left boxing, a few years ago, I canceled my subscription right away. And all I had left was Showtime. Seems like I'm going to be canceling another subscription pretty soon.
Me too, Harvey. Me too. That's it. I mean, I wasn't keeping it for any other reason, really.
I got to admit, though, growing up, I'm only 29. I've only known HBO and Showtime to really hold boxing. So, it was kind of a sad moment to hear him announce it the last time.
It's all some generations know.
That was it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's what we grew up on as real fight fans. It was HBO and Showtime.
Yeah.
End of an era.
Yeah.
End of an era. Yes.
Yeah. Well, listen, Harvey, man, we really appreciate you doing this, man. It has absolutely been an honor and a pleasure getting the chance to talk to you, man. I hope you'll keep in touch, and hopefully we can do it again from time to time. We'd love to have you back on.
Hey, it was an honor for me. So whenever you want me, just let me know.
Appreciate it, Harvey, man. Continued success. Best of luck, man. You're doing a hell of a job out there, man. We like what we see, man. You're at the top of your game, buddy. I mean, number one to me, man. You're doing a great job.
Appreciate it, Rex. Thanks, Frank.
If a ref could be in his prime, you're in your prime.
Yeah, if a ref is in his prime, that's what it looks like right there, man. Harvey Dock, man. Number one in his craft right now, man. Bar none, man. And we wish you the best the best going forward, man. And we look forward to seeing you as the third guy in there, man. Always.
Yep. I certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you, man. Thanks for doing it, Harvey. Appreciate it. Have a good one.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, later.
Yes, sir.
And you know what? I'm standing by that dude, man. He is the number one guy right now, man. I don't give a shit, man. He is, man. Harvey Dock is
I mean, you don't land in the ring in the same year with Spence and Crawford and Saul Alvarez and Charlo for nothing.
And Loma and Haney. Yeah, I mean, you
just don't land those fights for nothing.
I think he's being a little bit modest because Harvey strikes me as that type of guy, man. I realize he's saying that it's up to the athletic commission, man, but I certainly think the performances that you're turning in certainly add to your credibility.
Absolutely.
There's no doubt about that, man. Like when they're sitting around, like thinking,
definitely a modest guy, and definitely kind of like not a hard guy to interview, but like there's certain stuff that comes to my mind that I want to ask him that I know I can't ask.
You got to
him, you know what I
realize
mean?
he's got to say,
Like-
yeah, he's got to say, he's got to keep it Switzerland. He's got to keep it
Yeah.
Switzerland always, man. Yeah,
That's
he
why
does.
I try to preface every question with no names, nobody involved, like
Yeah.
just no specifics. We're
Yeah.
just talking broad spectrum now.
Yeah. If you were the referee in this fight,
Right.
I mean, there's no other way to approach it. But you know what? That's a sign of a true professional. And when I had Tony Weeks on back in the pod days, yeah, he was the exact same way, man. So these guys have been well schooled. As you heard Harvey say, he's learned from the best, man. Commissioner Larry Hazard, and other older referees that have been in the game a while, serving as mentors, man. And he was obviously well taught, man. And you're right. I don't think he's landing these gigs, just because every athletic state commission, man, happens to fucking love the work that he does. I think that is coupled with the fact they're not just drawing Harvey Dock's name out of a fishbowl full of names written on pieces of paper. Harvey Dock's in there doing his thing, man, with professionalism, man. And the thing I love about watching his performances, man.
I mean, most of the refs are older guys. Not to put anybody out here, but I don't think it's a looks contest.
No, no. And if it was, I think Harvey's got them all beat there, man. Handsome fella. I'll give him his props right there. I'm sure he wouldn't mind hearing that, man. But but certainly the things that I notice about a Harvey Dock performance, man, and you can't help but watch the referee, man, because he is part of that three-way dance there. But he moves very fluidly. You can obviously tell he's good on his feet. Regardless of how long of a fighting career he had. He obviously was training in boxing, practicing footwork, he moves very well, doesn't insert himself obtrusively into situations. He's not, all up in the fighter's business constantly, breaks him up when he needs to, lets him fight through things when he needs to, man. Gives fair warnings, but he's not quick to just start grabbing points away from guys. He does it all. He is probably the Terrence Crawford right now of refereeing, #1 in the world.
Right.
Just like this podcast is #1 in the world. So why wouldn't we have the #1 podcast or the #1 referee in the world on, man? #1's right together, man. Ones ought to hang next to each other.
Yeah.
You get two ones hanging next to each other. You got more than 11. You got two.
The number ones always find each other.
Yeah. Yep. Number one's always.
You notice when you look up, all the stars live in the same place.
Yeah, they do. Yep. Well, certainly we appreciate the great Harvey Dock, and I'll just give a little capsule of just the tip of the iceberg. Let me just put the tip in a little bit, man. Let me tickle your ass.
Whoa, pause that.
Let me tickle your ass with a feather for a minute, but let's, Harvey Dock was the third man in the ring for the aforementioned Haney versus Loma. Spence versus Crawford, probably the icing on the cake for 2023. Jermell Charlo versus Canelo. Jamal Charlo recently versus Jose Benavidez Jr. And that snooze fest with De Los Santos and Shakur, which probably he had to move around a little bit more on his feet just to keep the blood flowing, man, and not fall asleep standing up. But I mean, kudos to him for that, man. But that right there.
Not to put words in his mouth because he didn't say this, but he was probably in the ring like, stay awake, stay awake.
Yeah, stay awake. Stay awake.
Stay alert. Stay alert. They're
As
not going to do anything.
As a matter of fact, I think at one point he was in Shakur's corner, man, grabbing the water bottle to splash cold water on his face to wake himself up. I mean, allegedly. Everything is always alleged, man. Yeah. I think I saw him down at the scorer's table at one point, too, drinking coffee right out of the pot.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, that's a pro. You do what you got to do to stay awake, man. I mean, you might call it a master class, a defensive master class. I call it ambient on my TV screen. But that's it for this episode, man. I'm going to tell all the people out there what they need to know, man, which is...
You're not going to tell them. I'm going to tell them, to quote the great American poet Gary Busey, I can go 15 seconds with anything. And guess what? Alexis Arguello, puppet, you didn't say anything again. You let Harvey Dock come across the screen and didn't say a fucking thing.
No, and Harvey Dock's an old school, old head fucking boxing fan too. I wanted to ask his opinion on Alexis Arguello, man, but I choked up. But where I won't choke up is telling people So like and follow us on Facebook. Chime in on our installments of 3-punch combo. Give us your top 3 of whatever the hell we're blabbing about. I just put up a new one last night. Top 3 boogeymen.
Yeah.
That one right there was outside the box. And I also
I
had a
didn't,
nice.
I didn't watch your video, but I hope Subriel Matias made it on that list.
Yeah, he was my number 2, man. My number 3 was Jaron Boots Ennis, the real boogeyman of the welterweight division, who can't get a fight with anybody. My number 2 was Subriel, and I told Iceman Scully to let the champ know, man. But he commented and liked it, man. My number 1 was Artur Beterbiev.
Yeah.
I even said in my 3-punch combo, Michael Myers with boxing gloves. And I had a nice little Halloween theme music playing there too, man. The Michael Myers theme, man. Yeah, these are the bad men that nobody wants to see. This is the kind of stuff that we give you guys, man. So go check us out on Facebook. Reach out to us, man. We respond. We would love to hear from people, man. And of course, if you're watching this right now, like and subscribe, man, and hit the notification button, man, or you're a fucking puss cake.
Right.
You should be watching a boxing podcast.
At all.
What are you here for, man? You're here at the very bitter end of a Harvey Dock interview, man. Come on. I mean, you're a diehard if you've made it this far, man. So you might as well press the damn buttons, you know?
Right.
And if you don't, then you might as well close your ears to this little piece of advice because you'll never be one. But if you want to be a champion, kids, then you got to roll with the